That's how I get it. If I was you, Moskowitz, I'd sue us for that.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, I'm thinking about it now. You like that?
I like that.
You don't often get out on a Harley, do you?
No, I don't. I prefer a car.
The helmet looked great on
it. Did.
Well, you can never
like
tell.
Sergeant Schultz.
And also,
I know nothing.
Also, that was you on the vocals. That was really impressive. I like the way you sang.
Forza de la. Yeah. Forza de la.
I'm glad you guys are enjoying that.
We are.
All right.
Aren't you glad you came over today?
Very glad indeed.
Right, we have a couple of meaty issues involving guys we know in the Bay Area. Mychal Kendricks. We'll get to Addison, Russel in a minute. Mychal Kendricks had a nice career at Cal. Won a Super Bowl with the Philadelphia Eagles. Was with the Cleveland Browns in training camp, and we saw him on Hard Knocks. And he was charged with something called insider trading, which is not trading, which is not like we did on Hard Knocks in football where he said Zach Ertz can't block.
Yeah.
This was serious allegations with stock transactions. So he pled guilty to this. Cleveland, when he was a member of the Browns is when this came down, they immediately cut him off the football team. But the NFL didn't do anything as far as suspending him. He was in limbo. And then the Seattle Seahawks and Pete Carroll signed him to a contract. And now this week, they have decided to suspend him.
Well, he's going to be busy for the next 23 months.
Defending himself?
No, serving some time.
Is he?
Well, he's not going to jail right now.
No, but the minute you have something criminal like that, the teams don't want to be associated with it. They say it's bad. They can go ahead, invoke Marl's clause. It's very bad for the team. And basically the problem was it's bad because it deals with greed. And he even admitted he said he knew he was doing wrong. What insider trading is somebody gives you some secret information that's not available to the public. And that's very serious in the securities world. And that's what he's having a problem with.
Well, a couple of things. Court ordered that he's got to repay $1,188,000. That's his ill-gotten gains from it.
Sometimes it doesn't happen. Depends what he currently has.
And they say his sentencing is scheduled for January 25. So he's not doing any jail time before then. And is it assured that he will do jail time?
No, what happens is they're talking about a deal for that. But what happens with a deal is the prosecution and defense make an agreement, and then they go before the judge. And the judge usually says, okay, but sometimes the judge can say, you know what, that's not enough, no deal for you. Go back and try again. So that's the hurdle he has to face right now.
Is part of insider trading, I'm asking for my friend again, not for me.
It's a gambling friend that has so much trouble.
The gambling friend, that one who's
I guess he's watching our show, and I don't mean the Southeastern
Yeah, exactly. So for insider trading, does Mychal Kendricks, does a big part of it play into intent to do it? So if you don't know that that's insider trading, if someone tells you something, you're like, all right, I'll do it, but you don't know that's in knowledge or you're not supposed to have, can you prove that, and does that get you out of any issue?
It really helps, because what happens is if your friend came up to you and said, you know, I read in the Wall Street Journal this morning that X was going to happen. Oh, great.
I'm going to invest.
I'm going to invest. And then you find out you didn't get it in the Wall Street Journal. In fact, you were party to the trade and you gave the information. But here, you know, he paid $10,000 in cash and he gave Eagles tickets and other stuff. So he knew, and he actually paid for it.
So
I'm rather shocked by your tact on this. Your thought on this. You and I have been doing TV together since 2009, and you've always defended.
We always came over from high school.
No, but you always. I mean, what you do is defend people. You're not defending Mychal Kendricks in this situation.
Well, the problem is he's pleading, and sometimes if you go ahead and do that, you only make the case worse. Because if a client comes out and says, "Look, he did it," then what you're trying to do, it's kind of known as sentence bargaining, where you're saying, "Okay, you got the goods on my guy. What's the minimum punishment we can have?" Because in that case, if the guy fought, he'd wind up getting a lot more punishment.
All right, so from the law, you know, it's a very serious crime. But until this is adjudicated, why can't he play in the NFL? So the way the league rules
bad.
Is that just simply it?
Look,
doesn't he have a right to make a living? I mean, the way the league structures these suspensions in its personal conduct, it's kind of a broad base. Everyone's a little bit different, but typically you get 6 games. They're just saying indefinite suspension. It seems like they want to keep him out of the league the entire year, and then he goes to trial in the offseason. Should that be allowed?
Well, again, the problem is where I'm always upset with that, and we've talked about it in the show so many times together, is when somebody is accused of something, the police investigate, the police say, nothing here, district attorney isn't interested in it, and the commission comes in and says, you've been accused, therefore you're guilty. That makes me wild. But here, the guy is already saying he did it.
Yeah.
He said he knew he was wrong when he did it. And this is pure business and, you know, morals clauses. It looks very bad for the team, and especially our society today, the way everybody, you know, is so upset over everything. This was just a business decision on the team.
If he does go to jail, it says it could get up to 37 months. That's 3 years. Is that in a prison with murderers and all? Is this a white-collar crime prison?
That's one of the things you negotiate. Where's it going to be? Because there's all different types of prisons. So that's part of what you negotiate to try to get him in the best possible place, not the place where it's kind of like you see in the movies.
Martha Stewart. He wants to go to Martha Stewart's prison.
You want Martha Stewart. You don't want Shawshank Redemption.
No, you don't. No, you really don't.
Okay.
That was good. Thank you.
Wait, one last. There's no precedence for that I know of an NFL team or the NFL suspending somebody based on insider trading. So how do they figure out an arbitrary amount of games? Like domestic abuse or assault, that's one thing that they've had so many counts of at now that they have some precedence of how to kind of dictate that. How do they, like, can you fight whatever the NFL says is the suspension because you say, well, that's unreasonable, I don't deserve that?
You can, but what happens is when you're taking a look at the pleading, one of the things the judge is looking at, did you have remorse? So what you have to watch out for is if you do that, the judge may say, look, you know what, you've shown no remorse. Because what happens is there's something called the federal minimum mandatory sentencing guidelines, and the judge can move up or down on that. When you go up, it's more prison time, and you go down, it's less. And one of the things they look at is the defendant show remorse. And that's what he's doing here, where he said he knew he was wrong, he's sorry, and he's doing it. That's why he's doing that. So if he went out and fought it, the judge might say, look, you know, even still, you're doing this and give him more time. So I think basically he's doing what his lawyer told him.
Let's switch gears to baseball, Stephen. Cubs shortstop Addison Russel suspended 40 games by Major League Baseball amid domestic violence allegations. 40 games, sexual assault and child abuse policy. Rob Manfred announced on Wednesday he will accept it. He's not going to challenge it. And it's retroactive to September 21st. Will not appeal. What's interesting here, there's many interesting things, but a Chicago police spokesman said that last month the department had not launched a criminal investigation, but that detectives would look at the allegations further and have already reached out to the Cubs. So will it become more of a legal matter now?
Yes, because what happened is the police said so far they didn't do anything, but now anybody has any evidence. If you called up the police and said, you know what, I witnessed something, they'd be very interested in talking to you. So basically the Cubs said they went ahead, they did an investigation, and the police want to know, well, what'd you find out? And one of the things that we're looking at here is that he's taking a look at the temper of the times, and also he's considering his future career, contract coming up, how will the teams look at him, and he made a business decision. You know, he went out and he said, okay, he wishes his ex-wife well, and everything for the best for the kids, but he's trying to be as marketable as he can. And what he figured was in the temper of today's times, look at the Supreme Court and everything else, that these allegations can be such that he made a business decision and he's trying to be as marketable as he can under the circumstances.
But by not challenging it, don't people think, hey, man, he's guilty?
You're admitting your guilt, right?
Unfortunately, that's the common type of thing. It's, for example, in settlements, you have this typical clause where nobody admits to anything. Even though you're paying some guy $17 million, nobody admits to anything. But a lot of times people say, well, if he was guilty, he did that, and if he was innocent, why didn't he go forward? But the problem is, and especially in the temper of today's times, there's so much to lose that somebody makes a deal, and also he doesn't want all the groups marching and everything that he did. So he made a business decision, and that's what happens with most of these things. And most things in law, when a case comes in, it starts off with someone's going to go to the United States Supreme Court, and they're angry, and what's right. And then what happens is cold, hard reality sets into people and say, well, wait a minute, if I do this, how will it affect my pocketbook? How will it affect my career? How will it affect my family? And then they make a decision. And that's what he's done here.
So in a court of law, though, can they now, if he goes into if a trial, can they say, well, you accepted this 40-game suspension and everything? Isn't that, to a juror, what they say is that admission of guilt?
Well, what's going to happen? Oh, then we get a little technical. So what happens is his lawyer would do something called the motion in limine, and that's where before a trial, both lawyers go to the judge and say, okay, there's some stuff I want to keep out. You know his prior axe murder? That would be so prejudicial, far more than probative, we have to keep it out. So the bottom line is you want to keep those things out, and the jury's not supposed to hear those.
All right, sir. Sports in the law.
Wow.
Sports in the
Always
law.
a pleasure.
Wow.
Quid pro quo.
Indeed. Ipso facto. Res ipso loquitur.
Hannibal Lecter said that. I don't know if
My friend will reach out to you soon.
He's going to invite you for dinner, I know.
Shawshank Redemption and Hannibal
Thank you.
Lecter.
Hey, we're bringing it right up.
Thank you, Steve.
We don't talk Shawshank enough with you here.
Listen, we've been on
Steve
for
Kerr's favorite movie, Shawshank Redemption.
Is it?
fantastic movie.
Yeah.
Great year of
We haven't
movies.
talked basketball in 40 minutes. Can we rectify that, listener?
About time.
I could stay on and we'll talk about it.
Yes.